Right. He's talking about the two levels of Ratzon. The Ratzon Pratim, individual commandments, and the Raiva in the Ratzon, general Ratzon, which is expression of the Bala Ratzon. The will to will, the want to want. Or in simple language, the want to have an intimate relationship. And then comes the individual wants that would express that and create it. So Yidden Oise Dvarei. And then the Shmoy Bekol Dvarei, that's the big secret that Yidden Poyol, that they learn from the Malachim, and the Malachim had to precede them, otherwise the reality, the dynamic doesn't exist, because Yidden only emerge as Yidden as a people, to Me'er the Ratzon the Melucha only emerge as a result of Midas HaMalchus. So who's there to Me'er the Midah? For a mortal king, the people, but how does it work for God? The answer is that he sets that in place through the Shaigus Ha'aryeh, the roar of the lion, the Malachim, which the Yidden then imitate, as it were. So the Ma'eder, the Ratzon, the Klali, the Raivid, the Raivin, and that contains potentially all of the Ritzonos Protium, the actual commandments, and that's the diak of what words of the pasuk that explains the diak, which words? Pardon? Right. He said Dvarei being the actual commandments, even though they're not articulated there. It's a Ratzon Klali, but it's from there that the commandments will emerge, because what is the Ratzon Klali? Relationship with finite you, and finite you, well, there's going to be Ramach mitzvahs, the Shasa mitzvahs loisasa. So in that sense, they're Oisa Dvarei. And then the Shmoy Bekol Dvarei, when God issues it, to hear it with a Kabbalah's oil, individual Kabbalah's oil for that particular mitzvah. Now these two levels, he said now, the general and the detail, the Ratzon Klali and the Ratzon Pratim, Raivid and the Ratzim, is also in Torah mitzvahs B'chlal, and he said Torah is the blood, and it's the same blood. So you tell me, how did the association with Torah and blood, how does that happen? It's a two-part formula. It needs two pieces of information. Number one,
Aleph Dam.
Huh?
Adam is Aleph Dam.
What's that got to do with Torah? That doesn't help me. Before that has to be another Maimon Chazal that establishes A, and then what you said, B.
Adam.
Zois HaTorah Adam, which literally reads, this is the Torah, it is Adam. Kiyamas Ba'ayel, talking there in Pashas Chukas. And then he brings from the Shalah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that Adam is Aleph Dam. What defines him is, again, what the Aleph exactly means, I don't know, but Dam, the blood, that's Adam. And the blood, what's the chiddush of the blood? What's the point of the blood? And therefore the conclusion, that's what Torah is. The chiddush of blood is that notwithstanding, nonetheless. What's a notwithstanding?
Where it is.
Pardon?
Which aver it is.
And it is in every aver, and that it's present, and it goes, and it's mislabish. Nonetheless, remains the same blood, whether it's in the regal or the mayach. So that's Torah. The ivarim are mitzvahs, and the brain and the foot are radically different. Not on a cellular level, but in a manifested level. But the blood, even consciously, that brings life, the chayas, to the various parts of the body, remains as is, and uncompromised, unaffected by the islapshus. That's Torah. Mitzvahs have their specifics, but Torah is general and doesn't have the limitations of mitzvahs. And he concluded, where do we see that Torah does not have the limitations that mitzvahs do? The fact that very big raya, very powerful raya. It's the end of the paragraph. The number 43. In fact, that a person who learns in Torah about the korban oila, it's like you brought the korban. Are there any limitations when you learn dafka by day, only a kohen? No, it's even not a kohen and even night. And it's Gili Hikar of Oila. And we wondered why he doesn't say even a greater Chiddush, that what? Even in Zman HaGolus. Why, there's got to be a good reason why he doesn't say that. That's the biggest Chiddush, not even limited to Zman HaBayis. At any rate, so we see this inyan that in the same way that we spoke about the general Rotzen and the detailed Rotzen, the Raivin, the Bala Rotzen, and then the individual Retzoinus and commandments of that says in Torah mitzvahs, that Torah is the inyan klal, the Raivin, and mitzvahs are the individual Retzoinus. The Chaimas yesterday, so clearly he's saying that Torah is higher than mitzvahs at Bachlal. Chassidus, it points out that mitzvahs, the Rotz and Torah is Chochmah, and mitzvahs that it's saying is Baruch. So the answer is that that's Bepnimius Taka, that's true. That the Pnimius, the Boker of mitzvahs is in the Ratzon even deeper than Torah is. But overtly, as it manifests, Torah is the inyan klali, it's the dam, and you can learn about any subject anywhere. Also he doesn't add here that, that a person can learn Torah even in a state of tumah. There's many mitzvahs you can't perform that if you're in a state of tumah, and with Torah there's no limit. There's many things he doesn't say here. I guess it's intentional, but it all points to the transcendence of Torah relative, the Raivin, relative to the individual specific and therefore structured commandments. Now the Hoyer continues, it's to be pointed out, in the same way that we're drawing the distinction between Torah and mitzvahs itself. There are the two levels of mitzvah. The regular mitzvahs, and then there's the mitzvah teshuvah. Because teshuvah shall yodechel musakun olamal, that's called mashich siru pog mechas v'sholem, bekim mitzvah teshuvah is able to fix and fill anything that was lacked or blemished, God forbid, in the fulfillment of mitzvahs. How could that be? Because it draws on a higher level, the Bala Rotzen, where the relationship is not blemished and can't be. I still want you with all your imperfections and failures, and therefore that can be masak in it. As he goes on to say, because Shuvah touches the source from which the individual wills emerge, as we said moments ago, to understand this simple language. The Rabbi means I want a relationship with you. And that doesn't change even when we turn our back on God. He still wants it. And the mitzvahs are how this is going to happen. So when we violated the relationship through the mitzvahs, we can still repair it by drawing on and renewing and connecting to the essential bond that I want you, that is forever present. However, he adds, this that we say that tshuva is the level of the will to the will. I want to want you. and it's beyond the division of the individual specifics of how that's going to play out. It's only tshuva relative to the rest of mitzvahs. But relative to Torah, which is the discussion of the previous us, it's an individual commandment. Everything's like Sovev Kalalman relative to Torah itself. Tshuva also has differences, has divisions and differences. 45. To see, look at the Torah. He says in Tanya, tshuva is in the heart. There's many levels to tshuva. There's many levels to the heart. And the tshuva that's demanded from a person, is all depends on him, and also the circumstances. One person's tshuva is not the same as another. And within the person himself, even after he's done a proper teshuvah, today his tshuva is not accepted. Why? Because heaven wants to bring him to a higher level. Heaven wants a deeper level of teshuvah. It was good enough for yesterday, but your tshuva from yesterday is not enough for today. Now you're older and wiser, so the tshuva has got to be deeper. So therefore, tshuva also has its ischalkus. The true, transcendent, and pure, simple, non-composite, as it were, relative to mitzvah, completely beyond division. Again, relative to mitzvahs, Torah has division too, obviously. It's seichel, and mesechtes, and subjects. But relative to mitzvahs, it's in Torah. But only because everything is integrated. Torah is present in mitzvahs and mitzvahs in Torah. Therefore, this parallel exists. This inyan of Raivin the Raivin is found also in mitzvahs. And which mitzvah is that? The mitzvah Satshuvah. But now further depth in explaining the inyan of Torah, what darg of Torah we're speaking here. Yeah, we're good. We go further. So somebody wants to just summarize. What did he just say now in the second paragraph? Is it the second, whatever it is, of Eis Vav? That the same way that we said that what? That Torah is, fill in the blank.
Higher level, Ravid deriving.
Ravid deriving, dam. And mitzvahs are the ivodim, mitzvahs are the Ritzainus Pratim, individual. The individual commandments are similarly within mitzvahs too. There are the two, and the two categories are tshuva and mitzvahs. And then he added, but that's all in relative to mitzvahs, but relative to Torah. Torah is the true, in the words of the Maimon, the amitis. Amitis is galus, the Ravid is in Torah. Further explanation. Zion. The Inyan is the Hine Afshat Torah Chinas Adam. We define Torah as Adam. The Reise me Chachma Nafkes, and Torah issues forth from Chachma. And that's the Darga we're speaking here, that's the blood. I mean, the Aleph obviously means that Aleph refers to Chachma, first level. What Aleph means to teach. Aleph Chachma, Aleph Bina. There's two Lashon HaPasuk in Iyov. If I'm not mistaken, it's in Iyov. Al Koponim, so Torah issues forth from Chachma. However, this level of Adam is a lower level. That's the way Torah is drawn from the Yotzas. And goes out from, in the words of the Zohar quoted a moment ago, Nofkes, Torah comes out. Nofak means to go out from Chachma. Mehelim alagiloi, that's Torah already going from its concealed state to revealed state. But now we're going to talk about the source. The source of Torah is not Chachma. Chachma is the level that Torah emerges from. Aval b'shorsho u'mekoiro shemenu lukacho. The root and source from whence Torah is taken, About that, the pasuk says, "Ksiv midbar matana." In the desert, God gave a gift. Pasuk in Parshas Chukas, the song that Yidden sang after the miracle of Hashem saving them by the river Arnon. Shemibchinas midbar. So what's midbar? That's what it's a gift from the desert. Now it's going to explain of midbar beruchnius bepnimius and what a gewaldige level it is. So the level of midbar, who the maila b'chinas adam, that's a much higher level than adam. Kiba midbar ksiv, about this is a pasuk quoted frequently in Chassidus from Yirmiyah, that what's a midbar asher loy avar ba'ish. Yirmiyah is talking about the journey that he took him to the midbar, a place where no man traversed, v'lo yoshav adam sham, and no person dwells there. This is quoted again frequently, and it defines the inyan of midbar that lo yoshav adam. So there's midbar of klipa and midbar of kedusha. In the Maamar of Elo talks about the melech basada, but you're not in the midbar. The midbar you gotta move out of the midbar to at least be in the field. That's midbar of because lo yoshav adam. It's not a place for a mensch adam of etzir of Torah mitzvahs. But now in this Oisius, he's going to explain of midbar matana, the pnimius, the shayrish. It's important, to know the psukim, the Maamar Chazal, that all of the beer are based on it. These words, matana shal yashav adam, they should become fluent. It only happens not by listening, but by learning the mime and repeating it yourself. It's one of the beauties of Chassidus. I mean, this is a chetzonius beauty. Aside from the hasbara and havana, the psukim brings to life on a whole new level. So psukim we're familiar with, and it's a whole new oir. And if you want to makarav and misnagid, you got to quote the psukim and Maamar Chazal. That's the shaloi lishma. So what is the meaning of midbar? The midbar is la yashav adam sham and ba'adam gufa. So how does it translate in a person? Because everything has to translate in a person. What is the darga of lo yashav adam within a person? Answering in ametzah, the forehead. The forehead. He'll now elaborate. Shutamid b'madrega achas. The forehead is always the same. We don't see changes in the person like in the face, the eyes, etc. express what's going on in the emotion. Inside, the pnim. But panim means face because it expresses what's happening inside. Pnim, what a person's experiencing internally. But that's on the face in general, the eyes, the mouth, his words, so on. But not the forehead. Why? The forehead. Because this is the level of Ratzin, this is the true level of Ratzin, Haydn, Chachma, B'chinas Raivin, the Chorayvin. Shalamaylim is Chalkas beyond division, therefore, no matter what the state, the forehead remains the same. And on this level, the Pasuk says, in story there with Shaul and Shmuel, God is not a person that is going to change his mind. He's taken the monarchy from you, and that's what's going to remain. What do we see from this pasuk here? Very, very powerfully, that the darga of loy adam, well, actually it's within adam, but there's a darga within adam, which is the metzach, which is that there's no regret, there's no shinuyim, there's no ischalkus, no change. The classic level of Adam, Torah, there is level, there's Yischalkus, relatively speaking. But not where in the Darga of Raivin, the Loy Adam Darga, that's the Midbar, there's no change. Loy Adam. So what is it? That's Begashmi is reflected in the physical body. What's the parallel in the Neshama? This is the level of Yechida that's eternal and unchanging. And you'll explain at length why it's called Midbar. Shenikras Yechida, it's called Yechida. It's from the Alter Rebbe, Baal Shem, Shemekabelas, M'chinas Yachid, because she receives from the Yachid, from the singular, unique one, from the Eibishter himself. B'chinas Antla Shenazoya, B'chinas Antu Chad, you are one, but V'loi B'chushben, but not reckoned in the reckoning of numbers, the reckoning of reckonings. It's not one relative to two, but one, Yachid, unique. She'ein ba Yischalkas V'riboy, there's no division and no multiplicity. Or b'meile in b'gam shinoi, there's no division, there's not change. It's being, pure isness, pure being, the being of God, the am of God. Ki riboi v'shinoi hainu hach. When you have division, and so that means change. That's one and the same thing. One thing is, the other thing is only something else because it's different from the other thing. If it's the same, then there's no ribui. It's one. And even in numbers, a unit is a unit. There's one, two, but it occupies a different space. And it comes after one, so it's different. So it concludes,
What is hach? Hach. Hainu hach.
It's one and the same thing. Hainu hach. Hainu. It is that. It's v'zeh in your Torah, and this is what Torah is. And it's pnimius midbar sheshor shemakayra. Even though it manifests takas chochma, but we're not speaking about the manifestation, which itself is in of bittul. But we're talking the shayresh v'pchinas midbar. It comes from the midbar, as the pasuk says again, midbar matana, was dafka given in the desert. Ashala yoshev adam sham, as the pasuk says in Yirmiyah, that no Adam dwells there. So that's in of Torah. Ella, however, if he should call you not Torah, liyestim shechas the mata dafka, but the whole point of Torah is to be given to us. Lachein nimshecha Torah b'chinas Adam. It's drawn into the level of Adam Aleph Dam. That's Chachma already. Shezeh she'raisim Chachma nafkas. Torah emerges from Chachma because the whole point is to give it to us. Aval ikar v'shorsha. What is he giving? Be'emes. What's the ikar? It's primary truth and root. Is the pure rots and hide in Chachma well, the higher level of Keser. And to be pointed out, that there's a connection between the Pnimius of Chachma and the Pnimius of Atik. So that's what he's saying now, that the root of Torah is Kesed, and it emerges where in Chachma, because at a very deep inner level, they are bound up. He spells it out for us, Kesed, B'chlal, U'narotz. Kesed, in general, is Rotzen, Shebezeh Shaykh Shinuyim. So there can be changes, but we're not talking Stam Kesed, we're talking Pnimius Atik, where Chachma, where Pnimius Abba is rooted, and this is all the journey, as it were, of Torah. Pnimius HaKesed, which is Atik altogether. That's Pnimius HaKesed. Ubefrat, as we just said, Pnimius Atik, the Pnimius of Atik. That's the Pnimius, the Pnimius. That's higher than the classic Rotzen. That's a Baal Rotzen. B'chinas Raivin D'chol Raivin. B'chinas Baal Rotzen, the master of the will. And that's not shaykh to change at all. And it's this level that you know arouse B'nai Yisrael. The Akdamas lies in the mission. This is all, he's all elaborating on the whole Gewaltige Ufta of Eise Dvorei, that he didn't touch the Bala Rotzen, and explaining this now in detail. And that is, the conclusion geographically is Pnimius Atik. And that's manifested in Inyan of Torah in contrast to mitzvahs, as he explained. Yeah, it's still Tzarech in Chaim's question, as explained elsewhere, that mitzvahs are higher. Now that he said that Torah is Pnimius Atik, what could be higher? That's the Etzet. Okay, well, let's leave that.
He is saying over here that the bittul that we're saying, bittul akdomas naisel nishma, is to the balarotzin.
Yeah, and that's level. That's the midbar matzana. That's the darg of Torah. That's the higher than mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is rotzen, and this is in summary, mitzvahs is rotzen, Torah is balarotzen.
Okay.
Okay, your question is. The answer to your question is that we don't speak about Torah at the level of Baal Ratzon. The emphasis of Torah is Torah mechachma nafkas. That's lower than Ratzon. That's Bechlal. But here, and it's like the final statement. I don't know that the pnimius of Torah is the Baal Ratzon mamish. I mean, the fact is that the person is tirasa imnosek, the Rabbi didn't do mitzvahs. It's part of a mitzvahs.
Is he pointing to Torah or is he pointing to the bittul? Is he pointing to the Torah? Or I know you're trying to say that he's pointing to the Torah, but I think he's saying, kvetching, I think, the bittul of the Balaroth in Nice.
So the bittul is mamshech Torah from its source. Their bittul, their nasa, was mamshech the Torah from its darga of kalei odom, midbar matana, the balarotz, and then that's where Torah is rooted. And the bittul is ma'ere megala that. And then it came down into the individual retzonos. But they touched the balarotz and Ivan the Ivan. More detail coming now on the ches. Friends, so as you know, Beit Hashem tonight, this afternoon, we're off to the Holy Land. So Chaim suggested, I think we'll all agree that for the few days that I'm gone, back next Wednesday night, come together and Chazad the Maimer. Learn it together. Yeah. So let's continue. To add further detail that what the Yidden did with prefacing Naisel and Nishma, and that caused Kabbalah Satira because they touched the Torah at its very source, Shibchinas Midbar, the level of Midbar Shaliyashav, Adam Sham, higher than Adam, higher than what? Higher than Rotzen altogether. The Meitzach, the forehead. So the more detail, this is also reflected in the fact, let's talk about and understand the physical properties of a desert. It's not just Lo Yashav Adam. It's higher than Adam. But what is the Midbar? So now the details of the desert he will now translate in Avodas Hashem, and it's very beautiful and very demanding. Midbar, nothing grows. And just the earth which is inanimate. Why? Because the intensity of the sun burns and consumes the moisture that's found in the earth. Okay? Now you know why the desert's a desert. It's not fitting to be sown. Nothing will grow there. And animals are also not found there. Because I cannot bear the intensity of the heat. And there's nothing to sustain them there. So there are no animals. And how much more so it's not appropriate for human habitation. Not like a field. Not even not a place to live. Called many tzmachim, things grow there. Asavim, grass, tvus, grain, hilanis, trees. And they're animals. That's number one. Second observation, we say the mizesh, but it's a gufa. So looking at the very earth of the desert, what's left is only the inanimate property, the inanimate within inanimate. And I'll explain. In the earth itself, so everything has all the other stratas of life within it on a subtle level. In general, that's true. But it's gufa klulim behelem in it's classic earth, not midbar. So in a concealed way, there is present within it, in an unarticulated way, growth, chai, life, and even a person. Everything comes from the earth, including man. Everything needs the earth. It has the power of growth. It's an interesting statement in Zoya that there are different geographical locations produce different kinds of people. So there are some places that produce wise people and some places that produce fools. That's from the Aretz. It's fascinating. So regular ground is organic and it has life and it produces life and sustains life and creates life. However, b'midbar in the desert, mitzat chem hashemesh, because of the gilui, the revelation of the intensity of the shemesh, yotzuv they're exited, gone. V'nichlo, and it's become absorbed, burned by the sun. All of these properties are no longer. They are burned. They have been absorbed in the source. The quality usually that earth has no longer. What's left, that's the words he said. They began this little discussion. Is a doimem shibadoim. B'chlal it's a doimem. But in the midbar, all is left is the doimem shibadoim. And the other property, clear. The other properties have been destroyed. She'ein mimenu hashpah klal. It's not. It can't give anything. It has nothing to give. It just is. Now explains it Naveda Meidedik. So what's this darg of midbar in a person? Or inyan abitel betachles, he's total bitl. He's got nothing to say. He has nothing to contribute. Completely, his entire being contracted. All that's left is he exists. I am. The sovereign self. Sovereign, keser. Keser, malchus means is the being. So he's not manifesting anything else. He's just there in a total bittul. That's the doimem. The word doim also means silent because the inanimate world is silent. So this is silence within silent doim shebedoimem. Shegam la'atzma eina bebchinas hashpah klal. Even within himself, there's no conversation. There's no hashpah. Kamayam mid like the desert. He's going to spell this out soon. Shegam be'aretz in beidach chilek hadoimel bavad. Even in aretz, everything is gone. Just the doimem. This begin the beautiful marshal. Understand this in the marshal of the student, the Talmud who sits before his Rav. The Gemara says in Psachim in Shabbos called Tamish in Tzisayis Neitvis Meir. Any student that when he sits before his Rav, his lips do not drip Meir. Fear. Then the strong words, his lips should be burnt, so it says. Should be consumed. He has to be completely bittul. He's just there. He's listening. What's his atzmis? What's the core of his being? He's a makabel from his Rav. At that stage is not being mashpia. Even no internal conversation. What the Rav is saying, he's not analyzing it to himself. That comes later. When he sits before the Rav, He's completely consumed the Kabul etzem the kuda seichel Rav to get what the Rav is saying. While something is absorbing, it cannot give out. It's halach in kelim, in the kashas of kelim and meat. So while he's absorbing, he's not in the state of mashpia. Never mind lirak to somebody else. To himself. Only once he's distanced from his teacher, then he starts to think in the idea that which he got from his Rav and to understand it himself. Now he's no longer just a makabel. Now he's an active participant. He's expressing himself to influence, inspire himself, to affect himself. Lahavin, to understand the idea that was taught, that he received. Levarer, to clarify it and to analyze it means that you should take it apart literally. As the idea that he got the teaching, got from his Rav, she understand it well. My nekuda, what's the nekuda? My protim, what are the details? To grasp it as the Rav is conveying it, the truth of the idea. What's primary, what's secondary. And once he understands it, and he comes to das, which means what he begins the process of internalization, the process of application. Das says both. That's why the shin is 4. The shin, the right, the tefillin, because chesed and gvura, and then he decides the seichel is it to go in the way of chesed, shamai hillel, etc. Then the journey continues. The seichel comes down to the heart, till he behaves and acts upon it. That's all later. That's all not shaykh. It sits before his master. Then he's a midbar. Then he's doimim shebedoimim sharinaysev lakach shachshachim dalifnei mishugad. First of all, is a klal. A person, a chacham doesn't speak in front of someone who's great, who's wiser than him. Anybody, even if he's a little bit wiser than you, you're silent. Before he's Rav. Rav, who is his teacher, and at a third level, which is the case in point, the Rav is not just older and learnt more. The Rav is in a whole different level, incomparable. In the Eidzos, so in addition to being silent, so there's no expression at all. He's completely just absorbing. Even to himself, to understand what the Rabbi is saying. As the Gemara says, he's an empty vessel, and that's the only way that you can receive something. Okay, you'll continue. Finish the ice, go back, chazad the maimer.
Now you see why we're silent sometimes.
Huh?
Now you see why we're silent sometimes.
But that's only the presence of a Rav, Mama Sharav. Okay.
Yeshikayach, Mazel Tov, safe travels.
Yeah, so this Tavis all around, yeah.